guys, welcome to Jason Gaines Radio, episode 11. Today we've got a phenomenal guest. I was very lucky to be able to get a hold of this guy. We booked it in quite a while ago and finally been able to do it. So we've got Ben Coomber of Ben Coomber Radio, one of the world's top health and fitness podcasters, and making a huge difference within the fitness industry worldwide through his body type nutrition training courses. So we got through some amazing content, including top tips for recovery, the nutritional requirements, differences between performance and fat loss. Are deloads important? What tips you should have, or what indicators you should have if you need a deload. Ben's opinion on Biosig. Is 80% nutrition, 20% training an accurate representation of how it actually is and for which populations? Can we drink alcohol for fat loss? And what was the best interview that he's ever done? And much, much more, including future predictions for the fitness industry, where it's currently going, and why extremism kind of sells in the fitness industry. So we've got some amazing content here. We had a few technical issues towards the end and lost the video link. However, we've got the audio from that as well. So even if you are watching it on YouTube, be sure to listen right to the end because we've got some amazing content in there and you'll get a lot out of this. Jason Gaines Radio. The insatiable quest for constant progression. Chasing is the act of pursuing. Gains is the result or positive outcome. Chasing Gaines Radio. Here's your host, Cody McAuliffe. So everyone's got a kind of story of how they kind of got into the fitness industry. What was the tipping point that kind of made you think that you want to be in the fitness industry, making a change to specifically, say, personal trainers, which is what you're doing at the moment?
For sure. I got into the fitness industry because I went on a weight loss journey myself. So I was I left school, realised I was really fat. I was going to be an actor, decided that fat actors don't get as much work. So I wanted to get slim.
Yep.
Tried to get slim. Did everything that, we're kind of recommended to do, like go running, eat better food, eat well plate in the UK, that kind of stuff. And I'd lost like 5 pounds in 5 months. So I was getting a bit disheartened. I was putting in an awful lot of effort. I changed an awful lot. And I was in the kitchen one day arguing with my brother because I'm the bigger brother, so I get to bully him.
Yeah,
and
as you do.
I was teasing him because he was overweight as well. And he said, well, you're not so perfect. And then somehow he bet me to try and lose 2 stone by Christmas, and that was 2 months away. And of course I was like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, I've only lost 5 pounds in the last 5 months. So I had to turn all what I knew on its head. I joined a different gym. I was really fortunate to fall in the hands of a good trainer called Ben Gray.
Yep.
He told me to read a book called How to Eat, Move and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. Bought it, read it in a week, started to apply it. And then lost 4 stone in 4 months. Then lost another stone after like another couple of months. Obviously a bit harder to lose. And at that point, I was like, screw acting. I'm going to be in the nutrition and health game. And I was just really inspired by my own journey. Because I got to a point where I looked good. I felt good. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, nice. Awesome story. So what kind of led you to moving more into training personal trainers then? Because that's kind of where you're at the moment.
Sure. So one of my other goals is to affect change. I want to be a facilitator for other people. And I can only help so many people by, working with them one-to-one, group coaching, whatever it might be. And if I teach the trainers how to do their job better, because I went on a journey to become a good trainer, I then think, well, I can affect greater change because I'm training the trainers that then go and help 30, 40, 50, 100 people every year.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of my key rationales.
Yeah, awesome. I have kind of a similar background as well, so I manage PTs as well in like some snaps over here. So definitely can kind of see how having that bigger impact on the world just makes it all that much easier as well. So it's good work that you're doing. In terms of nutrition recommendations for someone who's basically just starting out in their training journey, what would you recommend as the kind of key things to work towards?
Number 1, eat real food. Like, you need food that's going to energize the brain and body. Every cell in the body needs vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. Your digestive system needs fiber. This all comes from real food. You can't skip that stuff out. The human body has a basic need for protein. You need to probably eat at least anywhere from 1.5 grams to 3 grams per kilogram, depending on who you are. And then after that, alongside getting loads of fruits and veggies in your diet, I recommend people play around with their protein and macronutrient ratio to try and find out basically what makes them feel good. There's going to be loads of people that feel good on fats, loads of people that feel good on carbs. So they should just experiment with that. And then when your goals become more specific, like for a beginner, you can get an awful long way just eating real food in sensible proportions. And then when your goals become more specific, you want to maybe get your body fat even lower, you want to think about building muscle, then you need to be aware of your calorie intake and how that's going to affect your goals to make sure that you're not eating too much or that you're eating enough. And that is my basic premise of nutrition.
Yeah. In terms of people working towards performance goals, are there any extra things that you'd give to people like that? So people with working in professional sports or even just recreational sporting teams?
Yeah, so most people will expect me now to say, oh, there's this amazing supplement called this, that, and to be honest, it's all a load of crap because so many people, general population and athletes are still not getting all the basics absolutely nailed. People are not going to bed on time. People are not managing their sleep. People don't get good enough quality sleep. They're waking up 2, 3, 4 a.m. They're probably training too hard. They're quite often not eating enough because they're trying to balance between staying lean and performing well, and that rarely works. You have to teeter on the edge of almost staying lean and getting fat. There is a very fine line between a performance and a maintenance calorie intake. And then looking at your recovery, honestly, are you doing enough stretching, mobility, you've got to work in as well as work out. And that's usually my performance kind of matrix, in that if I get someone recovering really, really well, you'll perform well. Yeah, cool. Then go and take caffeine before a workout, some lactate buffering agents. Cool. That's ergogenic supplementation. But ultimately, performance comes from optimal recovery, and people just do not recover well enough.
Yeah. In terms of recovery, then, what are your kind of hacks that you give people to be able to increase recovery? Do you recommend Epsom salt baths or anything along those lines, or magnesium supplementation, or?
Yeah, big fan of Epsom salts. I produce something in the UK, recovery spray. I'm a massive fan of that. That's transdermal magnesium and zinc. I find that's really beneficial for acute and localized DOMs as well as overall recovery. Big fan. Then, secondly, you've got to make sure your calories are high enough. If you don't eat enough, you're not going to recover well enough. It's really is as simple as that. Then, make sure your carbohydrate is adequate for your out. So many people, especially with current diet trends, a lot of people are still a bit probably too low carb. They believe that low carb is going to help them burn body fat, and that is helping them not recover as effectively. Sleep, power naps, massage, foam roller in, getting your biomechanics to work really efficiently so you're not putting excessive stress on certain muscles or joints, which will feel like you are not getting enough recovery. I'll come back to the protein and carb thing in the fact that if you don't eat a macronutrient ratio that makes you feel good, in my eyes, you're either going to be physically or mentally fatigued purely because your body's fueling isn't adequate.
Yeah.
So you almost feel that you haven't recovered because you don't have as much mental and physical energy. So they're probably my kind of main hacks. Vitamin D, another important one. Fish oil, another important one. That's probably my key list.
Yeah, cool. In terms of, say you mentioned foam rolling before, how important do you find mobility in performance?
Hugely. Everyone's got a strength curve, and it will operate within how tight you are. I've been working with a strength coach for a good 3 or 4 months now. He's ironed out so much, and I'm still lifting with baby weights. I've gone right back to basics again.
Yeah.
I've only really just worked up to a high deadlift. I've been working at 60, 80 kilogram deadlifts for ages, but my legs work so much better. I'm actually using my muscles. I feel like blood's actually moving into my glutes.
Yeah.
My hip flexors aren't inhibiting my lower core function. My scapula's not really getting caught. It's gliding a lot. It's just so much more of if the body moves efficiently, you can produce strength better, power better, through greater range of movement, and decrease your risk of injury.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of like the training that you're doing at the moment, are you in rugby season at the moment, or?
I am, yeah. So training in the gym I'm currently in 4 days a week, which is a lot higher than normal.
Yeah.
I'm trying to push myself. I'm eating a ton more. I'm kind of doing all right, but I'm doing it in short blocks. So usually I would only train. It would depend what's happening in my life, but usually I'll be in the gym twice a week, Monday and Wednesday gym session, kind of full body or lower upper body split. And then I'm out on the park Tuesday and Thursday. But because I'm putting so much emphasis on my lower body in the Monday, Wednesday sessions with my coach, I'm doing like my own 45-minute upper body sessions in the gym on a Tuesday and Thursday. So because the overall volume isn't as high, I'm able to kind of train a bit more frequently. But I've been doing that for 3.5 weeks now, and now after tomorrow, I'm going to have 4 days off.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure that I'm training hard, but resting hard as well, and I'm being disciplined with that.
Yeah, cool. In terms of deloads then for training, which is kind of what you just mentioned then, how often do you think people should do them?
It definitely depends on your training intensity. Like, if you saunter along training 3 days a week, you could probably train 3 days a week for a long time without a deload. Probably just take a deload when you sail off for your holiday for a week.
Yeah.
If you start to train 4, 5, 6 days a week, maybe multiple sessions, you have to be on top of it. Like, the body can only handle so much. So for me, quite often, and this is hard because people don't have the self-discipline to often do this, or auto-regulation training, like, oh, my body's feeling a bit beaten up, I'll take 3 or 4 days off. But most people haven't reached the end of their program or their mesocycle, or they're looking forward to chest day, I don't know, and they just don't actually take the rest, and they think, I'll push myself a little bit longer and not take the rest. So if your sleep starts to derail slightly, your mental energy starts to derail, your recovery starts to ail, your joints start to hurt, take a rest. But anyone should be looking at their training on a macro level. I'm going to put in 3.5 really hard weeks of training. I'm going to take a five days off, solid. I'm just going to rest, go to a spa, chill out with my family, etc. If I was only training 2 days a week, like I would usually do, I'd probably let that run for about 6 weeks, and then I'd take 4 or 5 days off.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. In terms of, hormonal balance for like weight loss or weight gain, how important do you think that is?
I only think it's important if there's an issue.
Yeah.
And if you have an issue, you need to find out rather than guess. Like, if you're not losing body fat, or you're not building muscle, or you're not sleeping well, don't just go, it's my thyroid, it's my testosterone, because you read some articles online. Like, hormones are complex things, and hormones, they don't change overnight. Like, you've done damage. If there is a legitimate problem, you've done damage over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 years by going to bed late, training too hard, having too much stress, whatever. The easy and the complicated problem of hormones is it takes a global approach. Like, you have to start to nourish your body, get to bed on time. You basically have to recover. You have to work in more than out more. The hormonal system burns out by us burning it out. By all means, it can play a role. Like, if you've got really low testosterone, you will struggle to gain muscle mass.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of guys that legitimately don't have low enough testosterone, and actually, if they looked after themselves, their testosterone would naturally just kind of regulate itself again.
Yeah. And how do you kind of track that? Is it more just to do with like your sleep, or is it your sex drive, or is it both, or?
It's definitely both. I have a very complicated form that I got off one of Paul Check's courses very, very long time ago, which is a HAQ form, health appraisal questionnaire, and it basically goes over all areas of people's health. It takes you about 45 minutes to fill in. It's a massive form.
Yeah.
But it gives me a huge insight into people's areas, all the areas of health, digestive system, hormones, brain, liver, all of it. So I kind of, I dig down into all of these areas. For example, my opinion is that whatever the problem is and how specific the problem is, unless you take a generalized approach first, you haven't earned the right to take a specific approach.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me with problems, but they're still not eating right, sleeping right, moving right, drinking right, there's no point going, I'm going to look at your problem, because there's just so much wrong anyway.
Yeah.
And the body works on a very, there's so many things that can affect stuff. So you might as well just get the body working right. So if I'm working with a client, it's been 8 to 12 weeks, I haven't really seen any improvement in the specific problem from a global approach, then I'll say, right, I'm going to send you to functional medicine practitioner, I'm going to send you to your doctor, I'd like you to get X, Y, and Z test run, get his opinion, and then we'll move from there. I'll either carry on working with you, or I'll refer out to another practitioner, and I will, let them deal with you, and you can sort of come back to me when it's appropriate.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. Great advice there. In terms of people who've influenced you, you've mentioned Paul Chek a few times. Is there any other people who've kind of been your biggest influence that you'd basically recommend any kind of personal trainer or person interested in their fitness following?
Yeah, Paul Chek, one of them. I'm a big fan of Charles Poliquin's strength work. I'm not a fan of his nutrition work, to be honest. I think it leaves a lot to be desired. Who else nutrition-wise? In terms of getting really close with the research, I'm a big fan of examine.com and kind of getting nitty-gritty with what is proven in the scientific literature. You're testing me now. I'm trying to think of what my bookshelf looks like. I've gone blank. I just can't think. John Berardi, big fan of what he's sort of done in the nutrition space. Kane Leatham in the UK. And probably, if people were to look at the amount of people that I've interviewed on my podcast, I've interviewed a lot of the people that have inspired me and my journey, and I think are doing amazing things. So it's probably on that list of podcasts.
Okay, awesome. In terms of, you just mentioned Charles Poliquin. One of the people in one of the mentoring groups that I'm in wanted to ask you about your opinion on Biosignature. So I'd like you to go into a little bit more detail on what you think about that, and then in comparison to, say, body type nutrition, the kind of training that you offer around that.
So the Biosignature got huge because it was almost like, ooh, this is a cool, shiny new toy. But the reality is, we as practitioners cannot pinch skin and go, you've got low testosterone, high testosterone. I'm sorry, it's bordering on ludicrous. There's no research data to back it up. There's trends with cortisol and abdominal fat, but that's kind of really it. We're not pinching hamstrings and going, oh, you've got high estrogen. You need to go to a doctor, you need to go to a functional medicine practitioner and actually get a full blood profile done. Also, if you find out if someone's got low testosterone, us as practitioners, me as a nutrition coach, sports nutritionist, performance nutritionist, whatever you want to call me, I do not have the ability to analyse why that testosterone is low. And it can be so many different factors that feed into it. It can be free-flowing testosterone. It can be the kind of the precursors that then release the testosterone. It can be the binding sites. It can be cortisol. It can be so much. You and me probably don't have the ability to do that. So I refer people to doctor, functional medicine practitioner, etc. And then kind of basing a nutritional intervention on that. Nutrition is going to play a very minor part in hormonal health. It does come down from largely a lifestyle intervention. It is kind of all-encompassing. And I suppose to draw a parallel with, body type nutrition, I've kind of already summed up what we do in the fact that we take a client, we look at where they're at, we look at all the lifestyle factors, we look to optimize that, we look to nourish them as a person, especially their kind of happiness. We look at the kind of mindset and psychology level as well. We then look to bolt on calories and macronutrients if it's appropriate for that individual, because it's not appropriate for everyone. We then look to optimize protein, fat, and carbohydrates in a ratio that works for them, both in terms of their physical demands and what makes them feel good from an energy perspective. And then over time, we just work that and refine that with the client to say, well, did this meal work for you? Are there intolerance foods? Intolerances is another big thing. I'm a massive fan of finding out if someone's got an issue with gluten, wheat, FODMAPs, egg, dairy. There could be tons of stuff. Anyone can be intolerant to anything. So that's kind of my thought process and how it differs. And I think the nutrition industry as a whole is starting to get a wake-up call in that a lot of people for a long time have claimed too much based on no research or backing. And we've all had a bit of a wake-up call and go, do you know what? We need to kind of base our stuff on reality more. And I've done the same, and other people need to do more.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of recommendations on stuff, is it all your recommendations based on science, or is there still kind of some things that you recommend that there just isn't the science for yet?
I think it's probably about 60-70% based on evidence and science. We can't argue that the body has certain needs.
Yeah.
It has certain factors that it has to have taken care of, and we know that. But the other kind of 30-40% is the individual variations that we see that science is never going to be able to uncounter. How I work with a client, how I try to optimize things, the mindset, the reasons for change, all this stuff is a lot harder to kind of find out. It's like, I'll give you a different example. The recovery spray that I developed, we still have no idea how it works. Probably no idea. And I honestly put my hands up and we say, we're not quite sure yet, but there's a mechanism here. People have put it on, they've gone, do you know what, I'm not as sore, I'm sleeping better, and I'm like, brilliant, okay, let's use this. It's like loads of supplements we've used over the past, like creatine. Before it got loads of data, people were like, Jesus, my muscles are looking bigger and I'm training harder, and we all went, well, there's something here, let's use it, and then the data catches up. But those assumptions still have to be based in reality. Knowing, coming back to Biosignature, knowing how the hormonal system works, you can't pinch your hamstring and know if you've got high estrogen. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of evidence out there, what's kind of the best research paper that you've kind of read in the last 12 months?
I think the most fascinating research right now is where the line is drawn between the calorie need of an individual and how the microbiome affects how a food is responded to in the body.
Yeah.
So we know there's a new paper out at the moment. It's absolutely fascinating. It's just the tip of the iceberg, saying that if someone eats rice, it has a totally different GI in one person to another. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, if we can almost create these genetic profiles of people to say that, do you know what, Cody, you shouldn't eat rice because it sends your blood glucose to well over 100. Ben, you're great with rice, it only goes up to 6. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That means we're going to get better energy, better performance. So I think the gut and how that affects everything and the calories that we use is going to be the next big fascinating thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take quite a while to piece all that together.
Yeah, I saw you just posted about that just this week, I think it was. It's a really good article that you had the link to as well. In terms of gut health then, what kind of recommendations do you give to potential clients on improving their gut health?
The first thing is always look at allergens. So I do a simple elimination test. I look at trends in their diet diary and I say, do you know what, I think this might be a problem. We'll take it out for a couple of weeks. We'll do a staged retest where we'll slowly bring it in. We'll listen to your body. We'll use the symptoms that you used to have to let us know whether that's changing or not, and it is a reactionary food. And then after that, if we think there's potential gut issues, we might do some high-dose probiotics for a period of time. We might do some curcumin. We might look at some beneficial yeasts and some functional foods. And that kind of tends to be my approach. I'm very happy as a practitioner taking a little bit of a shotgun approach to the gut if I know there's a problem, because there's some well-researched supplements that we know if we throw them in, they have benefit. So it's not something where I'm going, I think I need to refer out to a functional med or a doctor. I feel I can kind of handle that. Also, it's not costly for the client. If I think I'm giving a client a very specific intervention that's very costly, I need to know that it's pretty close on the money. Otherwise, I'm being a little bit unethical spending that amount of cash of a client when I'm kind of guessing.
Yeah, awesome. Totally agree. In terms of for like body composition outcomes, how important is training compared to nutrition? Is it the whole 80% nutrition, 20% training, or what's your opinion on that kind of quote?
I think the quote's been a bit misused. I think the fat mass that we have is definitely determined a lot of the time by nutrition. That is the bulk of it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you want to shape a body, you've got to train hard, man. Like if you want to look like a bodybuilder, you've got to train your nuts off like a bodybuilder, and the diet is really just as important as the training. Like if I want to be good at rugby, I've got to be disciplined with my endurance, my strength, my power, my flexibility. So I've got to do a lot actually as kind of an all-round athlete. So I think it's very much a case of both. They don't go hand in hand. You can't. I think if we were going to talk about general population, cool. It probably is 80% nutrition. But because I'm an athlete, because you're an athlete, it's actually probably 50-50.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that quote is definitely misused, and even if you're not exercising enough, then the nutrition that you're having is not getting actually moved through your body enough as it is anyway. So it still needs to be that balance as well. In terms of drinking for fat loss, what's your opinion on being able to have a drink around, like with your working on losing body fat?
Sure, I actually made a Facebook post on this today.
Yeah.
I got drunk at the weekend, and if I'm on a fat loss goal, I would find it very difficult to lose fat and go on a bender, purely because the overall calorie load and what drinking can make us do. It can make us binge, can make us tired, lethargic, all sorts of stuff. So I think if you're losing body fat or if you're maintaining, casual drinking isn't a problem if you factor it in. Like a pint of beer roughly is 180 calories. Now, if I'm dieting on 2,800, actually it's probably all right if I have a pint, twice a week with an evening meal. If I factor that in, I know the amount of calories that's in it. It's not going to be a big problem. But, a lot of people have poor psychology and poor attachments to alcohol and why they have it in their nutrition or their diet. And that needs to be breached. Like I have a very healthy attitude towards alcohol. I enjoy it. Simple as that. I only drink really, really good, expensive craft beer because I love it. So I only have a couple a week, if at most. I enjoy really good gins. So the cost element isn't really an issue because I drink it so infrequently. Yeah. And I do it purely because I enjoy it. Like, I'm not like, oh God, I need a beer. I feel so, stressed or whatever. Like, then we're starting to latch onto alcohol for a poor reason. So I definitely think it can be included.
Yeah.
Man, I love beer.
Don't we all? In terms of, you do a lot of posting and interviews online as well. So who do you think is probably the best person you've ever interviewed in the interview that you got the most out of?
My favourite ever has been Martin Rooney.
Yeah.
Maybe a slightly unlikely choice, but Martin's got an incredible way with words. He really knows how to inspire people. He looks at... Pardon?
Is he the Strength for Warriors guy?
Training for Warriors.
Training for Warriors, yeah, that's it, yeah. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so he just looks at life on a big level, like attack life, make sure you're having fun, train well, be strong, eat to be happy, don't be dogmatic, and just the way he delivers that message, loved it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've seen a couple of podcasts by him and really enjoyed him, so yeah, he's a great guy. In terms of kind of where the fitness industry is at the moment, where do you kind of see the fitness industry at the moment? Where do you see it kind of going?
The fitness industry currently has a few too many charlatans in it. I actually ranted on my podcast recording today about this in that me and Rachel Guy, who's my co-host, she had been noticing a lot more Australian trainers been doing shows, and this is the same in the UK, been doing a fitness competitor show for 1 year, and then all of a sudden they're a fitness expert and online nutrition coach, and it's like, you can't do that. It's not ethical. I'm sorry, you don't have the ability to effectively coach people in that manner, and you're gonna damage people both physically and mentally because they're all putting people on flipping 1,400 calorie diets with training twice a day. It's just ridiculous. So I think there's going to be a bit more. There's going to be people calling other people out.
Yeah.
There's going to be people saying, well, do you have the qualifications to give me this advice? There's also going to be more regulations within the fitness industry. So I think we're just going to see things tightened up a bit. Yeah. And I think, if anything, it kind of needs it. There's a lot of people running around saying they're things that they're not, and that kind of needs to be kind of stamped out, just like the nutrition industry has become a bit more science focused, because I think it needed that. It had a few too many people going, well, if you eat carbs at 3, you get pecs. Like, we need to stop saying this stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it all comes back to, I think, just like the Instagram trainers that are kind of doing that. And a lot of, I know a lot of people who basically get like an Instagram following and then get their PT qualification just because they want to be able to do programs and stuff. And a lot of people start doing programs. Like I know a few people who do diet plans who've never done like a show even. They just do their own diet and they actually prep people for shows, having never done it themselves, no qualifications, but they just have a following on Instagram. So it's definitely a problem with the industry, and I'm hoping that it does change pretty soon, where we kind of get those regulation changes and that move of the industry to being more important about actually kind of getting the skills to be able to do that, and more regulation around that as well. So totally agree.
Yeah, if you just let me, I'm just going to clarify something in that I don't want people, because I know trainers will listen to this, I don't want people, because there is also a trend in fitness to just call out or hate on people that are being successful. And there are plenty of people doing bad things that are successful. By all means, point the finger at them and maybe get them to up their game, improve what they're doing. But if someone's successful, it doesn't mean that you just get to point the finger and badmouth them, because there's maybe 2 or 5% of their practice that you maybe would do differently. Not disagree with, you just do it differently. And I use the example because in the UK at the moment, there's a guy that is absolutely exploding off the chain. He's called the Body Coach, Joe Wicks.
Yeah.
He's got a cookbook called Lean in 15, and personal trainers are digging holes in him, saying, "Oh, you should be counting calories and you should be doing this, and HIIT workouts aren't effective. You do them X times a week and all this kind of stuff." And I'm like, hang on a second. This guy's sold 250,000 books in 3 weeks. He's teaching people how to cook real food in 15 minutes and teaching people how to exercise in 15 minutes. What's wrong with that? That is massive positive change. That's 250,000 people that now know how to cook and move better in a fraction of the time that you're telling them to, and people are hating on him. And it's just ridiculous. So there's a definite, we've got to differentiate there.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of like the industry as well, do you find that, I kind of find that a lot of people who do have like their kind of ideals around what they kind of prescribe with their nutrition is the only way, when like if you look at say veganism, a lot of people who are vegans try and make everyone else a vegan, and everyone else who's not a vegan is like the devil, or same with clean eating, or if it fits your macros, whatever it is, everyone kind of has what they do, and then that's the only way. Do you kind of find that as well?
Hugely. And I think it's kind of it's a marketing thing as well. If people are like, this is the only way, that banging the big drum, vegan, whatever it might be, they've got a really strong kind of purpose and argument. And, me standing here going, everyone's different, you need to eat in different ways, you need to work your way through it, train to have fun, but be progressive with it. It's not as sexy a sell, and that it doesn't sell diet books, it doesn't sell all sorts of stuff. So I think we see these extreme things because it sells more, and it's sexier. But ultimately, look, every diet on the planet has pros and cons. Like veganism has some amazing pros. People always seem to struggle to cook vegetable dishes or make vegetables interesting. And I'm like, when was the last time you looked at a vegan? I bet you they know a ton of tricks in the kitchen on how to make vegetables really nice. And what's the solution? Cook that dish and put a steak next to it. Job done.
Yeah.
So I just think we can learn so much, and there's just so much negativity between people sort of saying, I'm right, you're wrong. And it's like, well, part of you's right and part of mine's wrong. Let's bring them together and make a happy medium.
Yeah, totally agree. One of the biggest things I just say is it depends on the person. It's all about the context of the individual and what's going to be best for them, because everyone's going to have completely different circumstances, completely different training history, diet history, every kind of circumstance around the foods that they like or dislike. So it's all going to depend on the specific individual. Do you find that as well?
Of course. Like, there's no point having an argument without context. It's pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree.
Should someone count calories? Cool. Right. What's their diet history?
Yeah.
Straight away, straight off the bat, we just need to counter argue it with what is the context.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of achieving any kind of goal, how important do you think the mental side of thing is?
I think the mental side is most of it.
Yeah.
People are scared to achieve their goals because they're scared of failure. They're scared of trying. But a lot of the time you need to try and you need to have a little bit of failure to kind of see that there's light there and that you can do it. Maybe you did something wrong and you just need to tweak it and carry on. If we looked at the population and we went around and asked them what is healthy food, it wouldn't be that far out. They kind of know what real food is, vegetables and stuff. So what is it? It's a mindset shift a lot of the time. People have got to want to change. They've got to be in it. They've got to have a reason why. So the mental side of it is huge. And that's why my podcast has taken a huge focus probably for like the last 20 episodes where we've talked so much more about the mind and change and how to stimulate these processes, because I've been beating the drum for ages on the dynamics of nutrition and how to eat well. I've now got to look to wire people's brains better.
Yeah, totally agree. And what kind of strategies do you have for people overcoming obstacles that they have that's kind of limiting their beliefs to be able to achieve any kind of weight loss or muscle gain goal, whatever it is?
Okay, tough, because we don't have context, right?
Yeah.
But I think the big thing for a lot of people is the why. A lot of people have externally driven goals. Like, we'll take guys, for example. They look on the front cover of Men's Health and they're like, oh, I'm going to get that body, which is an externally driven goal. And some people will get there, but not that many.
Yeah. And
a lot of people will not get there because they weren't internally driven. They didn't have a greater why. It didn't mean anything to them emotionally. So that's a big thing. You've got every goal you've got to say to yourself, why? Why have I got this goal? What does it actually mean to me? Because if you can't create a deep connection with it, you won't be driven to do it. People, I think a huge amount of the population suffers with low self-esteem, low confidence. We get it beaten out of us in our childhood. I always use the analogy of art class, where you're 8 years old and you're probably even younger. You're scribbling. The teacher said, draw a house in your family. And you're drawing it, and then your mate looks over your shoulder and goes, man, that's shit. Points the finger. Everyone points at last. Then all of a sudden, your confidence, your creativity is being crushed from a simple drawing exercise. And actually, we take all this stuff through life, and it creates the people that we are today. So, people are so scared of doing anything, so scared of failing because they don't want to be laughed at, that actually they don't show themselves that they're capable. And sometimes you've got to try a little bit. You've got to fail a little bit. It's like me pointing at a wall that's 8 foot.
Yeah.
If I stood at it and someone said, jump that wall, I might be like, well, I can't. And then the guy said, well, think about it. Well, actually, 8 foot, it's only 2 and a bit foot taller than me. If I ran, put my foot into it, let me see. So I run, I put my foot into the wall, I just miss it. And by just missing it, I did fail. But I'm like, actually, if I did this a bit differently, I could succeed it. And sometimes it's a case of just giving it a shot, being close, and then saying, right, I need to tweak it, then I've got it.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. In terms of resources and stuff for people to help overcome mental blockages, are there any books or anything you'd recommend of people to be able to kind of move past if they think they've got something that's holding them back mentally?
Yeah, I think a great one is called Fuck It. Great book. There's another one that's very similar. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck. I say these 2 books because a lot of people care too much.
Yeah.
They care about what other people think, and they should focus on their own thing. Another one is The Chimp Paradox. I'd highly recommend people check out the work of Byron Katie, amazing practitioner. She talks basically about how do you get to a place where you genuinely love yourself.
Yeah.
And people listening to this might be like, ooh, but I'm like, there's not many people on this planet that genuinely love themselves. Like, I get to a place where they're happy on multiple levels. So that's a couple.
Yeah, awesome. In terms of resources of great people to learn from in terms of training, who would you recommend on that? So you gave some nutritional examples before, and then Poliquin for training. Do you have any other training people?
Big fan of Brett Contreras' work. I think he does great things. Martin Rooney, Brendan Chaplin in the UK, Andy McKenzie. Big fan of his body weight and core ideologies. Ido Portal. Lane Norton's got some interesting concepts. Yeah, a few ideas there.
Yeah, awesome. In terms of posture and stuff, so you kind of mentioned Ido Portal and stuff, and he's got some interesting concepts around, say, posture and stuff. Do you recommend people get standing desks and things like that?
Yeah, I also think it depends how you sit. But there's some really interesting data coming out that sitting is damaging our health long term. So I think we have to look at that. I have a standing desk.
Yeah.
I usually work for about 3 hours in the morning sitting, and then the afternoon I stand.
Yeah.
I think it's very healthy. I don't think my back is great if I sit for a long period of time. I've got a chair which I sort of kneel into it, so I don't actually sit onto it. If I didn't have that, I'd probably sit on a Swiss ball. I used to have one of those really big, comfy office chairs that you kind of like slouch into, and it's really nice and comfy. But it ruined my hip flexors and back. Over the course of about a year, I really noticed the decline in my posture and the flexibility of my spine. So now I just make sure I'm moving a lot more.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. I got a standing desk maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, and I could totally tell the difference within like a week of my squat, just because I wasn't anywhere near as tight. So it just made it like a world of difference pretty instantly. So definitely recommend like a lot of people getting on it, especially my corporate clients. In terms of like kind of outcomes and goals that you're working towards at the moment, what are you kind of working towards with your training? So you mentioned like you're doing 4 days a week at the moment. What's the big goal behind that? Is it to be better at the skill of doing rugby, or is it more to be hitting certain numbers in the gym?
Numbers don't mean anything to me, because numbers usually are things for people to compare each other against for some dick swinging. I just don't buy into any of that. My training these days is focused on me moving as best as possible. So as I said, the last 3 to 4 months have been a lot of stretching, a lot of movement, a lot of reconfiguration, a lot of activation with muscles that don't work. Now I'm building it up a bit more. We're starting to bring some conditioning and power into my kind of new movement patterns. We're obviously trying to make some muscles a bit bigger because they're not working as agonists against muscles that have maybe been overdeveloped in the past. So it's just about me bettering myself, getting a lot out of my rugby, feeling happy, with my body and stuff. And whether I have a 200 deadlift or a 250, I just don't care.
Okay, cool. That's fair enough. It's a good relationship with exercise to have that kind of perception about it as well. Like a lot of people that I find, especially because I do a lot with like people who are doing competition prep, and they always end up just comparing themselves, especially throughout the preparation, to other people. And then obviously they always end up just comparing kind of their worst parts to like the other person's best parts. How do you kind of get people to stop comparing themselves to others?
You've still got to realign their goals. So, fitness competitor will probably latch onto an image or a physique and go, I want that physique. And they'll keep refining that physique until they kind of get there. But they're never going to get there because that's not their physique. They have their own set of legs, their own torso, arms, whatever, made up in their own way, their own origins and insertions. And it's going to always look different. If you need to get to a place where you're like, every day I'm going to better myself, but the improvements I make, I'm going to be happy with, and I'm going to do it for my own personal reasons. Again, it's external and internal goals. Many fitness competitors are externally driven, and I've met very, very few that are emotionally stable and balanced and have a good relationship with themselves, with food, and with training. Very, very few competitors. And most of them, for me, the people that are balanced don't do it for very long because they realise that the kind of pursuit and why they're chasing it, they kind of do it, they've done it, and then they're like, well, great, I'm going to move on to my next goal. But the people, for me, that keep on doing it and doing it and doing it are chasing something.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of working towards performance goals, do you think it's important for, say, general population people to kind of work towards certain things?
And I think the key reason I think that is because it empowers people
the scales,
and makes them realise that they are actually very physically able. And this is why I think strength training has been great for women, and us showing that women that you won't get massive if you lift heavy weights, because actually they get empowered by going, oh my god, I just lifted that really heavy bar that looked really similar to that guy, or I can now jump further and I can now sprint. I never even thought I could run. So I think there's a huge amount of empowerment there, and also it takes away or takes emphasis off that relationship with the scales, like, oh, I'm here to lose fat. Well, no, you're here to do multiple things. You're here to kind of be fitter, be stronger. So yeah, I like it, and there's always, the chances are you can always get positive outcomes with focusing on performance-based goals. There'll always be weeks in someone's fat loss journey where they might not lose weight, but the chances are they might have lifted heavier or run faster or feel fitter, and that allows you as a coach to focus on the positives of that week's progress.
Yeah, awesome. In terms of your body type nutrition program, where can people find out more about that?
At bodytypenutrition.co.uk. So we have online coaching and online education. The education is our key focus. We educate trainers and everyday people on how to nail nutrition. So we have a foundation program, which is kind of for everyone. We have a lot of general population and trainers that go through it to learn all the basics and fundamentals about nutrition. And then we go through a year's course called the Practical Academy, which is a lot more intense, a lot more specific, a lot more time driven. You have to invest a bit more time in it, and that's me trying to turn out great nutrition coaches in the industry. So yeah, it's called the Body Type Nutrition Academy.
Yeah, and in terms of those supplements that you mentioned, where can people get a hold of those? Are they available only in the UK, or are they available worldwide as well?
They're available in the UK, transdermaltechnology.co.uk. I'm not sure if it's .com, can't remember, might be.
Google it.
I think they might actually, we were working with a distributor in Australia, I think .co.au or .oz. Anyway, that company will be around for about another month, and then it will get dissolved and it will form into something new.
Okay, cool. Exciting times then.
It is, but hush hush.
Okay, cool. In terms of best ways for people to be able to get in contact with you and then follow you on social media as well, what are the best ways for them to follow you and contact you?
Sure. So I'm Ben Coomber, Coomber, and you can kind of almost find me everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I am Ben Coomber on them. I also have the UK's #1 health and fitness podcast, which is called Ben Coomber Radio, with over 174 hours of content on it now. So wherever you like to digest info, just type in Ben Coomber and you will find me, and whether you like Instagram or email or whatever, I will have something for you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, thanks for taking the time out of your day to be able to kind of do this podcast as well. It's always great to interview people who are actually looking at making a proper change in the fitness industry and having that positive impact, and looking at increasing their actual impact like you are in the fitness industry. So thanks again.
Cheers, dude. Thank you.
So there we have it, guys. Another amazing guest on Chasing Gains Radio. We've got another couple awesome guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so be sure to look out for those. And be sure to share, like, and comment on this podcast if you enjoyed it, or hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, to be able to talk about any questions you had about the podcast. So again, just share this podcast if you liked it to help spread the Chasing Gains movement. Thanks again, guys.